Hello and welcome. My name is Ron Mitchell. I'm the editor and publisher of the Bay State Banner. And we are here at GBH Amplifies, a new initiative by GBH to amplify the voices of the Bay State Banner in New England's Black and Brown community. And today we're going to have some meaningful conversation right here at the Boston Public Library Newsfeed Cafe. As we all know, President Donald Trump was elected to be our next 47th president, and in what many people refer to as a comeback of the ages, despite his many legal convictions and many GOP stalwarts supporting the the present Vice President Kamala Harris. Today, we're going to talk with various different folks from the Black and Brown community, and who we at the Bay State Banner had a chance to talk to after the election to understand what they feel the future of this country will be under a new Trump administration. Joining me here today are three prominent community leaders from Boston. I want to start with Nia Evans. Nia is on our far side. Nia, thank you for joining us. Nia is with Boston's Ujima project, and Nia, thank you.
Thank you, Ron.
In addition to joining us, in addition to Nia, is George Greenidge, Jr., founder and director of Great Minds Boston, and also a visiting fellow at the Ash Center for Democracy and Governance and Innovation at the Harvard Kennedy School.
Glad to be here. Glad to be here.
Thank you. And also with us is, of course, the illustrious Colette Phillips.
Legendary.
The legendary Colette Phillips, yes. From Colette Phillips Communication and founder and president and CEO of Get Konnected.
Thank you.
Thank you. So let's get started on our conversation. As we all know, this November there was a GOP sweep of the presidency, the House, and the Senate. And for many folks, some people felt that it wasn't that surprising. The fact of the matter is that Kamala Harris, for a very different outcome could have happened if less than 0.1% of the vote in three different swing states had gone to her. But that didn't happen, so we are here looking forward to another Trump presidency. I want to start off with you, Colette. Can you let us know what you think, in a few words, was your original reaction when you first found out what happened?
Like most people, shocked, surprised, and horrified. Because when I think about it, that the American voters voted for someone who literally broadcast what he was going to do with Project 2025 over a very competent, highly qualified, and decent human being and candidate, Kamala Harris. So it was shocking. And I think for me, what it said was that 50% of our country are open and receptive to a multicultural, multi-ethnic, multi-religious country. And the other 50% want to go back to the 50s, where Black people were at the back of the bus, gay people were in the closet, women knew their place, they were in the kitchen, and basically this country is run by, if you know the show Mad Men,
Yes, well familiar.
by white men. That is essentially what happened. These are people who their fears were stoked by Donald Trump about the browning of America. If you look at the people that he consistently pointed out, wasn't the refugees that were coming from the Ukraine into this country. It was people who were coming from Haiti, people who were coming from Panama, from Guatemala, brown and Black people. So he was being very specific in saying they're coming to take your jobs.
Yes. We did hear that message. Chip, what did you think about the election? What was your first reaction?
Watching it, watched it at the Harvard Kennedy School. I also watched it at Prince Hall and also Hibernian Hall, but all in the Boston area. I was able to be around young people, and Hibernian Hall especially was that young people gathered that were college students and high school students that were really into being a part of this election. And to watch their faces, see that the things that they believe in are not actually going to be put out into the general public, about equal access, about people working together, about people understanding races. It really kind of said something to the young people in the room. And so one thing that I really wanted to push back to say that our young people got to just get really activated again in this kind of work, is that this is a long struggle, and many of them have not seen the civil rights struggle or have heard of the civil rights struggle or heard bits and pieces from their grandmother. This is now their civil rights struggle, okay? And another thing about, just by sitting there and just understanding, like, I kind of sat back, was kind of frozen for 2 days. And then I said, you know what? Donald Trump just showed us who the real apprentice was. We had 15 years of him on TV. He just slapped us all and said, let me show you, America, this is how you win, all right? You cheat, you can lie, you can do all these different things. And so it kind of woke us all up and kind of realizing what we need to do to go forward is that we need to fight back 100% on this stuff. Is that, we go over these pendulum swings like this and this. But right now is the time for us to galvanize and really work together as community people to take change.
Neil, what was your original reaction once the election results
Sure.
were finalized?
There's some resonance actually with what George has just said. So one, I went back to 2016 to do a comparison between my reaction then and now. And what I noticed was in 2016, I was devastated. This year, I was not. So why wasn't I devastated this year? Why was I a little more calm this year? I think leading up to actual election day, we had been seeing a bunch of different polls that talked about how close the election was. So I think myself as well as others had a sense that it could go either way. And I think one of the things many organizations and many individuals had been thinking about leading into the election was how to be prepared for a Harris-Walz administration, and also how to be prepared for a Trump-Vance administration. So I think that was one of the reasons. The other thing that resonates is this sense of a long game. So that was then my next reaction was understanding that this is a long game and hoping that days, months, years later, after we all have our initial reaction, we settle into this understanding that it is a long game. It is a battle. There's no such thing as a permanent victory. So we should never have that. We should never have that illusion that there's ever a permanent victory.
Yeah. Now, Vice President Kamala Harris received less Democratic support than President Biden did. Do you have any opinions as to why you think that is? Again, even though the election was so close in various different swing states, overall, she did lose the popular vote by 3%, which is a rarity for a Democrat in this country.
Sure, and I'm going to try not to offer an opinion. My personal opinion.
Okay.
But what I am going to try to do is offer some theories that do resonate with me. And some theories are more than theories, some are backed up. So one is we do know that there was lower turnout amongst Democrats. And that is for a number of reasons. So I think we would have to have conversations with different groups of people who voted, for example, in 2020 and 2016 and decided to sit this one out, because I don't think that there's a singular reason for that. Second, I do believe sexism played a role. So I do think sexism, for example, played a role in 2016. And I do also think sexism played a role here. I do think racism played a role. In addition to that, then some other theories that have been floated around. I do know that there is some disillusionment at the federal level with our electoral politics in general. So that could be one reason for people sitting out the election. And it could also be a reason where some people said, I'm going to vote third party this year, which I'm very sympathetic to. I would actually love to see a real viable third party in this country. And so I think some people felt like they were in safe states, like Massachusetts, California, et cetera, and said, well, since I already know the way that this is going to go, I'm going to now do my part to try to get some third party, I don't know which, we would have to talk to them, to a 5% threshold so that we could have a more viable third party in the country.
Yeah. Now, Colette, I know that there was a lot of talk prior to the actual election about black men supporting Kamala Harris, and I know that you did a large fundraiser in support of her. Can you talk to us what happened at your fundraiser and what you felt? Was that a misnomer? Was that just something that folks were talking about, or did you see any disconnect there?
For the men who supported Kamala at the fundraiser that Michael Curry and I and a number of very prominent black and brown and Asian men hosted, we saw an enthusiasm. We saw people really feeling good about having a female president. We did not see any sexism there, but we know that sexism and racism exist in our country. I also, want to say something that may not be popular, but I think sometimes we have to face an uncomfortable truth. And I think for several years in this country, I feel like white men have felt that they have been excluded from the conversation, particularly in the issue of diversity, equity, and inclusion. I have been advocating that you cannot have inclusion and exclude any group of people from the conversation. And what we saw happened was a tremendous backlash of them saying, we are going to reclaim our power, and reclaim it they did, with strongly supporting Donald Trump.
Yeah. Now, Chip, we know that 10% of the black male vote did go to Donald Trump, which was a surprise to many people. And I know you've talked to a lot of folks
Yes,
post-election.
I have.
What was what was their take, and what was some of the
Well,
feedback
it's interesting is that I'm educated with several different degrees, part of many different social, economic kind of nonprofit organizations. But there are a number of young men that aren't a part of those things, that felt like they've been totally taken out or not even being brought up into the conversation. We have young men that have been gone away for 10 years, and then they come back to society and realize they have 10 years of back child support that they owe. There are people that haven't been involved in or have even had support of them being able to go back to school or even trying to get a new education or in a new occupation. So there's a group of young men that haven't been touched and had been able to have really strong conversations with the Democratic Party to actually lure them back in.
The Harris campaign did put forth a whole bunch of programs and
Yes.
announce a whole bunch of initiatives designed to encourage and support black and brown
But that
men.
was late in the game. You know what I mean? That was kind of late in the, this is
She
October.
had a very short window,
But
though.
there was a short window. But the thing
Overall.
is that it's about engaging. I remember back in the day, it was like maybe 10, Joe the plumber. Do you remember this guy?
Yeah.
This guy
Yes,
came out of
yes.
nowhere and challenged Obama about what was going on, about how his business was to be affected by his tax policies. Is that we need to have some black Joe the plumbers and also some white Joe the plumbers to be able to be part of all these kind of conversations to get them back in to have what it means to be a part of the Democratic Party. And I think that absence of the face to the person like those, of real life faces, is something that really hurt this campaigin this time.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Nina. I see you
Sure,
want
I
to
just
chime in,
wanted-
by all means.
Thank you. I just wanted to add on a little bit. I think it's also important to point out, so one of the things I've most been paying attention to, actually, and this is how I should have answered the first time, I've most been paying attention to what the narratives about this election have been in the past few days. And so what's been interesting to me is that we saw a super majority of black people, period, vote for Harris and Walz, and that included a super majority of black men. And the headlines we are seeing are about the minority of black men who voted for Trump, who are being lumped in with the majority of Latino men who voted for Trump. We're seeing some narratives about the white women who voted for Trump, which is why I do respectfully disagree, Colette, about white men.
I didn't
We're
say
not
anything
seeing,
bad about
in terms
black
of them
men.
being excluded from the DEI,
Who? Black
white
men?
men conversation. Just, I do respectfully disagree.
Okay.
I think it's interesting. We're not really seeing the same type of attention and headlines devoted to the majority of white men who are Trump's largest demographic. And instead, we're seeing a more sympathetic picture of white men. Somehow they have been excluded from different conversations. Somehow their needs are not being seen to. And I think that I disagree. And I think that is a reflection of this country's racism, that we are talking more about the minority of certain groups who voted for Trump as opposed to the groups who voted for him in the majority and are his most reliable demographic.
I understand.
And that's why I brought up Joe the
well,
plumber.
Yes.
Yep.
And that's why I brought up Joe. That is a very interesting demographic that was being able to be engaged in a previous election that has pretty much been evaporated in these kind of discussions right now.
Well, there was a lot of dialogue early on about Trump once Kamala was announced as the candidate, and there was a great groundswell. There was still a lot of pushback around the country saying that Trump, questioning whether she could actually win. Does anybody really have feedback as to why you think there was that question early on? I know some folks talked about it a little bit.
Well,
but just,
certainly I think because as a woman, of course, and as a black South Asian woman, people did not think that, given that
even with all of her accolades, with all of her
Yes.
accomplishments, with all of her,
probably the most qualified person to run for president. She's the only candidate in 200 years that actually served in all three branches of government, judicial, legislative, and executive. And so what that's starkly pointed out to us, that even when you are a person of color or a woman, even when you are overqualified,
there's still a challenge
there
to
is
get that
still a
job,
challenge
especially
to
in the
get that
C-suites
job.
of America.
Absolutely.
Well, I want to remind everybody we're here at the Boston Public Library. I want to encourage folks who have questions to come up to our wonderful mic. That's Annie over there waving her hands. If anybody has a question, we're going to get to them in a little while. And I also wanted to talk about the upcoming Project 2025. Trump distanced himself during the campaign.
That's right on.
But now one of his appointees to the FCC, Brendan Carr, his appointee as FCC commissioner, actually authored one of the chapters in Project 2025. So now that he is elected, he's obviously coming right back to that. So I wanted to ask you folks what you thought Project 2025 and that whole manifesto will bring to our country. And I'll start off with you, Nia.
Sure. I think this is definitely, there's the saying or the adage, believe who a person,
Believe
when
what they
tell you, when somebody tells
believe,
you,
believe a
Angelou
person when
would
they
say.
tell you.
Maya
Right,
Angelou.
exactly.
Yeah.
believe
So
them
this
the
is-
first time.
This is Project
When people
2025.
tell- when
Yeah,
somebody
people
tells
tell
you who they are,
when someone tells
show
you who they
believe
are,
them.
believe
I
them.
believe
So
it's okay,
I think this fits. I think there has been a tendency for some people to kind of brush off some of Trump's and J.D. Vance's and others' remarks. But I think here they are going to go for the gusto, and Project 2025 is telling us exactly what they are going to try to do. Exactly. They're emboldened. For them, this is end game. I think they can see not only victory, but perhaps permanent victory. But again, I do think permanent victory is a mistake for anyone to think. But they see that they can take it all away. So last thing I'll say before we go to someone else, one thing that I was glad to see was some social media, some TikTok circulating with people reading Project 2025 out loud. And so that was some popular, kind of spontaneous popular education that I really appreciated. I would follow that up by saying, everyone, if you haven't read it yet, you should read it. They are not bluffing, and whether or not they are able to accomplish everything, it's a good guide in terms of what to expect, is what I would say.
Now, before we move forward, I just want to remind that we did reach out to various representatives of the GOP party here in Massachusetts and encourage them. Unfortunately, they were not able to make it today, but we are going to have a conversation. We're looking forward to have a conversation with them because we want to share their voices and opinions moving forward as well. Chip, I want to come to you. Let's take a look at Tom Harmon, who's Trump's nomination as the board czar. Do you think that we're going to see buses up here in Massachusetts taking and exporting quote-unquote illegal aliens from our country? Do you think it's really going to affect us here in Massachusetts?
I think it will affect us here, but we have a governor that has stood up and said, you know what? We're not playing that here in Massachusetts. We're not going to use state police and state resources to actually move this thing forward. But it will play in other parts of the country. This is exactly what we read about in Project 2025. It was put out there. It's not hidden anywhere. Usually these agendas are hidden and all that. It is flat up in your face, Googleable, available for you to read. And so we have to be able to take back and really sit back and say, you know what are we about in this country? We just found out that the spouses, that are eligible right now to be sent back as well. If you were married to someone, that was always been a part of the United States piece, is that you were able to marry someone you have a closer thing about becoming a citizen. That has been taken away under the rug. And so right now, as community people and also citizens, is that we're going to have to be able to fight back with this stuff. Is that we're going to have to be able to go back in our communities and tell them is that these are real people that have real jobs, that are out here, that are providing for our economy, that are actually being taken out of our whole economic inclusion initiatives here in the United States, especially in Massachusetts.
Well, the other thing is that,
go
just to
ahead.
pick up, we haven't even addressed the issue of the 1,000 kids who have not yet been sort of reunited with their
families.
parents.
That's right.
And we
During
are
the
now
last Trump
talking,
administration,
yes, we are now talking about hunting people down. This sounds like America is now becoming Nazi Germany, where people are turning on their neighbors and reporting people. We're going to see this happen in this country, just like we saw people calling the cops on black people. Right. We're going to see people saying, oh, I see a Latino, or I heard somebody speaking a different language who happens to be black or brown. They might be an immigrant, and people are going to be calling ICE. So I think we're going to see that kind of behavior happening in this country. This country is a country of immigrants. Unless you were born native or indigenous in America, every single person in this country, their families came over here.
That's right.
And we cannot, what is going to happen is we are going to see a dramatic impact in our economy because immigrants contribute tremendously to keeping the machinery going. They are the economic engines that keep our country, rolling.
That's right.
And so when you eliminate these people, what are you going to replace them with?
Yeah, that is a very, very good question. I want to move on now to talk about the Health and Human Services nominee, Robert J. Kennedy. And I'm going to open it up to the full panel. He is a controversial pick. He is an anti-vaxxer. He questions various different chronic diseases, the origins of them. Very, very controversial. Who would like to share with us their opinion of this nomination and what it might mean to healthcare in America if he does become the Health and Human Service Secretary?
I'll take a crack.
Okay,
And we're
take a
all
crack.
hesitating.
I know, that's like,
We're not healthcare experts. I think we're not trying to wade in where we shouldn't possibly. But what I am thinking about when I think about Robert F. Kennedy in general is I am thinking about what we saw during the pandemic, which he was not the only one, but he definitely, I think, had a role in elevating misinformation, disinformation, amplifying different people's fears, just in terms of whatever type of powerlessness they felt in their lives, and how they attributed that to different government actors like the CDC, for example. And so if he is appointed, he already has a national stage. I think there's a way in which that becomes even more prominent and carries more weight. And so then we can, I think, easily see the road to more distrust of government. Colette talked about communities turning against each other, more distrust in our communities, more distrust among neighbors. So I don't necessarily feel comfortable talking very specifically about healthcare specifically. But again, when it comes to information, which I think is a very important part of this conversation, it's gonna have an effect. We already see that high quality, reliable information is hard to find now. And so what's possible is the entire administration that will be in power next year is actually going to deepen that inaccessibility of high quality information.
Yeah. I just want to remind everybody that we did reach out to the GOP, and that unfortunately, based on the timing, we didn't hear back from them in time enough for this taping. But we do again look forward to speaking with them in the near future.
If I could just pick up on something that Nia said. During the pandemic, like a forensic MRI, two things were exposed in this country. The disparity, the health inequity that impacted Black and brown people in this country, and the economic wage gap and wealth gap. And what I am concerned about is if you have someone who is an anti-vaxxer, where the last, I would say, maybe 6, 7, 8 years, there are many institutions that have begun to address the issue of
Health
the
disparities,
health disparities.
yes.
And now you have someone who basically is going to shut down, like the CDC and other, maybe even the National Institute.
He's also talking about
Health
taking
Institute.
fluoride out of drinking water
Exactly.
and various other things that
So we are going back now to the 1800s.
in our
Right
healthcare
on.
program,
We're
yeah.
there.
And,
there.
you have to wonder, why is this individual appointing these highly incompetent, unqualified people for these roles? Imagine, if you will, if Joe Biden or Barack Obama had appointed these people and they were not white men. Just imagine the outrage we would be seeing in this country.
Yeah, no, I think it is clear that Trump has always been somebody who likes to shake things up, who likes to dismantle the norm, so to speak, moving forward. And one of his other appointees, just to clarify, one of his
I
other
don't know if this
appointees is.
are they sacrificial lambs? I mean, there's an end game
Game
somewhere in that
somewhere.
man's
Well,
mind.
let's talk about another one of his appointees, Elon Musk. Elon Musk has been appointed to a newly formed position in the Department of Efficiency. That's what they call it, the Department of Efficiency with Elon Musk. George, what do you think? And I call you Chip and George. Excuse me.
Yeah, my nickname, of course.
Yeah. What do you think about this appointment? What do you think about Elon Musk and his ability to realign our government to make it more efficient?
Well, Elon Musk has been a part of the process of putting out misinformation over the last 10 years about what's going on in our country. And so for him to be a part of a government agency that's about to take out all the inefficiencies, it's kind of I can't even understand this. I mean, another thing is that we got to look at the numbers. I mean, in Massachusetts, let's get hyper-local real quick. In Massachusetts right now, we have Black women that are dying during birth, twice the amount of white women. You know what I mean? Right now, let's get hyper-local right now again. In this part where we're at right here, is that we are in the Back Bay, 1 mile in Roxbury. There's a 30-year, I mean, this is going back. This is going back to the Joe Kennedy discussion. Not the Kennedy discussion.
Robert Kennedy.
Yeah. So, we're going to have to really get hyper-local. And when we start to talk about these discussions as well, is that, there's a larger pieces about inefficiency and all that, but we're also going to have to go back and think about the issues around. Have you seen these bridges in Boston area, in the greater Boston area? They're falling apart. You know what I mean? You're seeing also about the MBTA. It was $10 billion at one point. Now it's $25 billion. And so when we look at this thing about inefficiency in government, is that right now are hurting as a hyper local kind of situation about how we're going to be able to sustain and keep our economic pieces going forward. So I'm kind of going back and saying, how is this all going to work There's some major issues that are going on nationwide. You can't start cutting things.
Well,
We're dying.
yeah, Elon Musk is vehemently against DEI as well, and has been very vocal about that. And Colette, I know that you talk about that in one of your crusades is really to help allow folks the proper opportunity to rise in our community. Talk to us
Absolutely.
about
Well,
what you
I
think he
think-
might mean to DEI nationally if he is
Well,
allowed
first
to.
of all, I think DEI has become a red herring because, and most people don't understand what diversity, equity, and inclusion is about. It is not about displacement or replacement. Diversity, equity, and inclusion is really about creating opportunity and access for many people who have been left out of the process, who have not been able to move up the ladder. And I will tell you that most individuals that people call DEI candidates are overqualified for their jobs because we know that being mediocre doesn't get you through the door and up the ladder. You have to be twice as qualified. And they have not come up with, well, what are you going to do to address the issues that have really disadvantaged people of color in moving into positions of up the ladder and access and opportunity so that they can contribute to our economy.
Yeah, well, in the past, our Justice Department overall, under Democrats, have always pushed for justice in these areas. Donald Trump's nominee for the Attorney General is Matt Gaetz. Nia, do you want to chime in on what you think of this nomination, Matt Gaetz as the Attorney General for the United States?
So I think one of the conversations leading into the election was this conversation about Trump kind of taking revenge on those he considered his enemies. And this relates back to the question about Elon Musk and even this DEI question in terms of what's qualifying these candidates for Trump to pick them. And one thing that we think we know is the qualifier is the level of loyalty to Trump.
Right on.
And so if we understand that this person has been picked because he's demonstrated a deep loyalty to Trump, he's demonstrated that he most likely will not say no to any request or to any demands. I think that's probably the first thing we can expect is for Trump to actually be able to enact his revenge agenda.
But I'm
Continue.
really hoping our Republican brothers and sisters, I'll say it like that, they're not going to just totally just give a rubber stamp on this. They know exactly. There are many people that were a part of the Republican Party that have been against Gates and have been against Elon Musk, and so we're hoping that they're able to be these kind of swing votes to actually bring this kind of credibility back to what government's all about. It's not about rubber stamps and all that. It's about making sure the American people got the best candidates available to make sure that we move this country forward. Because you know what? China is there, Africa is there, and so is India is here, and we're going to have to be able to compete just as hard
in the global market.
In the global market.
In the global
And if you
market.
put unqualified people to lead these things, it's going to push us back economically as a whole.
Well, we
Wonderful.
can talk about Matt Gaetz. The issue that concerns me the most is how are you going to address issues like hate crime, civil rights, attacks? It is scary to think that he would appoint people with questionable backgrounds.
I want to, yes, thank you. That's a good point. I want to remind everybody that we're here at the Boston Public Library, and if you have some questions, you can come up and see Annie. There's a mic there. We'll be taking questions from our audience here at the Boston Public Library, so I want to encourage everybody to take that opportunity if you have a question. Now we're going to move forward and take a look going forward, and we'll start with you, Chip. Now that the Democrats have lost all three branches of government, the presidency, Senate, and the House, what do you see going forward in general and also looking toward the midterms elections? What do you think the Democratic Party needs to do to moving forward overall? We'll start with you and then, of course.
I think the main piece is about we're going to have to get back to be a group of joiners again. We're seeing that people are not joining the church as much. We're seeing people not joining the labor unions and all these other things. Is that we're going to have to build back that culture. And I know we lost a lot of that during the pandemic. But that's when we're going to be able to kind of build the kind of groundswell to start talking about the issues that we need to build back. Because I think that the Harris campaign had lots of different positives to it as it laid itself out. But, you know, we looked at the ground game and it just didn't really seem up up there with what it should have been. And so I think we're missing the part about us getting to talk to each other as neighbors, sharing information. And the thing that we got to realize is that if you don't look out, everyone's talking about looking out after their own kid. You got to look out after your neighbor's kid. You got to look out about your neighbors and so forth, because you're going to ask the question, who are these kids going to marry? They're going to marry people that are in your neighborhood and all these other things. You can't worry about yourself. And I think a lot of things have been about people over the last couple of years is that looking in their own pocket and saying, this is what I'm about.
It's really been an I, me thing, me, as opposed to a we thing, and it needs to be more of a we thing. We have to get back out there and care about our neighbors and care about people, about healthcare and all these different issues that are going on. And so I think that's the thing, is that we're going to have to get back into the caring thing and looking out for each other and making sure that we're able to go forward. But also we're going to have to join and run for every office that's out there. We're going to have to get on the boards of directors of all these different private schools, public schools, PTA, all those things. We have to be active, be engaged.
We have to be back active in order to be able to push this discussion back forward.
Wonderful.
Well, to build on what you have said, is we also have to go out and talk to people. As a marketer, you have to do your research. You have to know, what is it that people want? What are we missing? And I think that to really think about the midterm in terms of rejoining, you also have to ask questions. Mm-hmm. So you have to do what they have called in, I think, politics, you do the town hall meetings, mm-hmm. and you go out and you listen, you lean in, you listen, you learn, and then you take action.
That's right.
Based on the spirit of that you have gotten.
Yeah. And in the spirit of that, it's a great lead-in. We have a question from our audience here. Please introduce yourself and share your question for the panel.
Yes. Hello, cousin. We're very proud of you.
Thank you, but that's not a question, so let's go to the question, please.
Okay. So first of all, actually, this is for you, Colette. I'm an unenrolled citizen.
Yes.
How do you speak to the black women who voted for Trump? Because sexism and racism would not apply. I know 3 women of color, also of faith, who voted for Trump. They're my friends. How do you speak to that and address that?
Well, thank you for asking that question. I think before you speak to them, you have to understand what was it that motivated these women to vote against what I would call their own self-interest and the self-interest of their communities. Something went awry. There was something, some kind of missing something that caused them. You are their friend, and I would love to know, is there something specifically they said to you why they were voting for Donald Trump?
One which was very palpable is her husband. She sees him maybe once a week around 4 o'clock in the morning. Due to the economy, he has to work all the time. So she said if Trump can help with the economy and help with her purse and household income and allow her to see her husband on a more regular basis, that's why she was voting for Trump. It was the economy, according to her.
The economy, well, the economy is the best that it has been under the Biden-Harris administration in 50 years. And yes, I understand that cost of living has gone up. I mean, 30, 40 years ago when I came here to go to school, the Boston Globe was 25 cents. I could take 75 cents and get a burger, fries, and a Coke.
Yes.
Now it's a burger is $12 if you're not going to McDonald's.
I also think that we have
life has changed.
Yeah.
So,
I also think that we have to remind ourselves that coming out of the pandemic,
yes,
it changed our whole economy.
Absolutely.
And that challenge made everything more expensive. And it didn't matter who was going to be president.
That's right.
That trend of the cost of living increase was going to happen. Nia, I want to ask you though,
Can I also just
yeah,
say something really quickly to the person who just asked the question?
Yes.
So definitely, you know your friends better
Right.
than we do. I did just want to add to that. It is we do know it is possible for people to internalize sexism, and it is possible for people to internalize racism.
How do you mean?
So what I mean by that is if we're all being indoctrinated in
Yes.
the same way in this society, and so if we are receiving certain messaging about women, for example, women are not good leaders because A, B, C, D.
Yes.
If some of us do some work to kind of unlearn that. But a lot of us, that is actually a default, where
That's
if
right.
we're trying to choose between a man and a woman, even though we are women ourselves, we still might look and say, I don't think
Yes.
she'd be as strong a leader as this man. And I'm not saying this specifically about your friends. Like I said, you know them better than we do. But just to say, it isn't so easy and neat to say, well, it's a woman, so how could that, it's a woman voter, so how could that be sexism? Or it's a person of color, so how could that be
Yes.
racism?
You're not
It's possible
wrong.
for people of color to internalize racism.
Okay.
and we have to remember that in our media for hundreds of years,
Years.
images of people of color
Color.
as well as women as leaders have always been
been
degraded.
Yes.
Now, most folks don't think about that issue after the 80s or 90s, but that's still out there. And this campaign emboldened people to create that misinformation.
The residue is still there.
Still there. Well,
Yeah.
and,
residue.
and
Yeah.
Nina,
But with those
Nia
things
has
in
made
mind-
an excellent point. That comes back to remember the black dolls, white doll
Yes,
test?
yes, the dollar
Yes,
That,
yes,
that
yes,
was
yes.
done.
60s,
You
yes,
are
yes.
so on
Yeah,
point.
and for those who don't understand, back in the 60s, there was a psychological test that was done with black children, and they asked black girls, would you prefer the black doll or the white doll? And many of the children chose the
white
white doll, despite the fact that they were black, because of the images that they had been shown over generations about devaluing their own value and the value of women. Nia, but with these issues in our society, Nia, I
Should
want
we
to
just
ask
give
you.
her one last chance to respond, just so that it's
Oh
a fair
yeah,
conversation?
sure. I didn't mean to-
Actually, you're not wrong, but I just wanted to quickly go to healthcare.
I didn't know that was going to.
Okay, sorry. But just as a child, I remember watching 60 Minutes, and what affected me so much was, I hope we don't go back to a time. In a nutshell, with care, it's affordable. Yeah, you might have an out-of-pocket cost maximum of $5,000 to $10,000. Is that a lot of money? Yes, it is. But it's not you putting up your house, because back then it was either your house or your health care. I hope we don't go back to that time where they get rid of it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, thank
We
you so
agree
much.
with you.
So let's talk a little bit about looking towards moving forward.
Mm-hmm.
What do the folks who were so upset with the outcome? What do we need to reach out to the new black and brown folks who are in the Republican Party? Do we overall need to hear their voices? Just as a footnote, we did reach out, but unfortunately, based on the timing, we weren't able to have somebody present at this event. But we will look forward to speaking with them. But Nia or Chip, why don't you chime in a little bit on that, and we can all answer that question.
No, I said it before, and I think it has been echoed by Colette, is that we're going to have to go back to the hearing people, sitting down and hearing people what their needs are. It's not us coming in and saying, this is what the agenda is for you, and you better sign on to it. It's us being able to listen and hear what people want. We got to be clear is that our young people today, they are dating cross-racially. They're not African-American, Latino, Asian. The world's going to look very different in the next 25 years. And so we're going to have to be able to start pushing ourselves and start looking at it just in the race. And also, we're going to have to also push the way that we look at class, is that our young people are going to lead us as they showed us with the George Floyd, the marches that are all around this whole country and also around the world. They're going to show us exactly where the way to go. And so I think we really need to lean on our young people that have seen the world in different lenses, that haven't been burdened by some of the things that the residue that we've been experienced in our own lives, which is valid. But they're going to be the ones to bring us to the next level.
Many people say here in New England, we're in a bubble. Do you feel we're in a bubble? Do you feel that being a New England, somebody who lives in New England, that you don't really hear voices from the other parts of this nation?
I think there are many parts of New England where, yes, definitely you can be in a bubble, but let's also remember New England is diverse. So that's why I say it depends on
Yes.
where in New England.
You are.
I think if I live in Cambridge, so I think if you're talking about Boston and Cambridge, definitely. I think there may be some parts of central Massachusetts, for example, some parts of western Massachusetts, where you might have been hearing from some people who did not support Harris, for example. So I definitely think it depends where. There are definitely parts of Maine, I think, where you would not have been surprised. Parts of New Hampshire where you
I think there are parts of Western Mass,
Yes.
or just post 128.
Well, exactly.
Yeah,
And
Lawrence
parts
and
of
Lynn.
Boston.
I mean, there's a lot of places
Right
right
on.
here,
Exactly.
all throughout the
Yeah.
state,
That's right.
where there were surprising turnouts as far as support.
So
for
it
Trump.
definitely depends on where you are, and for me, I think there's this in terms of thinking about looking forward. There are a couple of things that Georgia said that resonates. So one, on this note of bubble, it does make me think about the power of networks
Yes.
and how networks impact what type of information is available to you. So networks impact not only information that's social in nature, but information that's a little more technical, that's a little more subject-oriented in nature. So I do think it behooves people. I don't think this means let me go out and find a friend in a political party that I'm not a part of. I don't think it means that. I think it does mean being open to different perspectives that you understand may be coming from places that are grounded. I don't think, for example, I'm not going to go out and befriend someone that I find hateful. I'm not going to learn anything from that person.
That's right.
I don't need to do that just to prove anything. However, somebody might have a difference of opinion on the size of government, for example, thinking about this kind of government efficiency. It might behoove me to learn whether or not that person is coming from a grounded place, whether or not they're coming from an authentic place. So then I understand there's a different perspective out here with regards to the size of government. And then the second thing I'll say is the thing that I'm finding myself, there are two things I'm finding myself thinking about the most, and this has been talked about already, and that's information and that's power. So I think a mistake that I have seen, I feel like a lot of kind of professional politicians, political operatives make, it seems like we don't really hear from people. I think this is a bit of a sense of people in general. It seems like we don't really kind of hear from politicians
yes.
until it's time to vote for them. And that, I think, is a mistake. So I think thinking about the midterms is 2 years in between, I think there's a question of how are we informing people as to what is happening? How are we connecting with our communities? How are we connecting with our neighbors? How are we connecting with our constituencies? I think the more authentic it is, and the more it's grounded in human being to human being, fellow community member to fellow community member, I am interested in making sure that I know how you understand this world. You know how I understand this world, as opposed to something that's more transactional. Now I'm knocking on your door because I want you to vote for me, as opposed to we're trying to understand this place together. We're trying to thrive together. So how can we?
I like to remind everybody when I talk to folks that Black folks and most folks, we're not a monolith.
Right.
That's
Despite the chatter, I have Black Republican friends, or sometimes they, don't really share their Republican feelings. But after this election, many of them did come to me and talk about why they chose or were willing to vote for Donald Trump, somebody who's outwardly, somebody whose presentation is very hateful in some ways.
And can
But
I
the
just
point
add to
that
that
they
really
brought to
quickly,
me,
Ron?
just to finish my point, the point that they brought to me was that they voted on the nuts and bolts. They didn't vote on the person or the man. They voted on what they thought his administration might do for their quality of life. Now, though I didn't agree with that evaluation,
Right.
that is their evaluation to make.
Right.
And I think that moving forward, the Democratic Party has to make sure that they're listening to everybody's voice and including as many voices. And again, just a reminder, we're here at the WGBH Amplifier here at the Boston Public Library, and we are taking questions from our wonderful
And
library
I
audience.
just wanted to add to that point really quickly, Ron. And you started to say it. I also just wanted to say, and it's okay to disagree.
Yes.
And I think we have not disagreed well lately as a society. So it's okay to disagree. I believe in persuasion. So I do believe it is possible. We won't do it all the time, but I believe it's possible for us to have conversations with each other. It's possible for people to change their minds. Sometimes that won't happen. So I think that that's the other thing that's important when we talk about information and conversation. I do think we need to learn how to disagree more substantively. If we are grounded in our values, I should feel like, again, I can persuade you, but if I can't, then I can't. That's fine.
I think that we also see, and this is a trend that's been happening over multiple decades, the loss of community newspapers, local
Yes.
newspapers.
Yes.
Back in the day with the Boston Phoenix and the Tab and various other newspapers. And overall around the country, the local voices in media have been dwindling. We do have podcasts that are very powerful, but even there, the voices of some more liberal folks is less popular in some ways. So I want to remind folks that
Well,
communication is
and
key.
I want to ask a question to both of you, and I'm taking over. But
Okay.
there's a question about, we've talked about this term BIPOC, all right? And we
Yes.
embrace this as we need to have with this BIPOC coalition. But what we look by the numbers here is that the B needs to have a discussion with the IPOC right now, because what's going on is that it looks like we're not on the same page. And so I want to question that and ask you guys, is that is this coalition of BIPOCness, is this an illusion?
What do you think, though?
No, I'm listening to you two. I want you to go. I'll go first. Go first.
That's a good,
We'll call it.
good
We'll-
question. We have to be willing to talk to each other. It comes back to what you were saying there, that we have to be willing to hear and see where do we meet the common ground. And you're right, we have not been able to speak to each other in a way that is civil, respectful. We are in a state of cancel culture.
Right.
I don't agree with what you say, so therefore I shut you down and shut you off. That's not going to make things any better. And there is another thing I wanted to say about before we close off. I want to see the allies who were out there marching during Black Lives Matter after George Floyd. Where are the white allies? We need you today more than we have ever needed you. So and because being an ally is not a 1 week, 1 day, 1 month performative act. It's a lifetime commitment that you are going to stand beside us and support us, stand in front of us when we need protection, and stand behind us when we are being pushed backwards. So I'm calling on every single person who think of themselves as an ally to step up, stand up, speak up.
Well, there you go. So we have we're almost running out of time, but we have one more question for all of you. And the last question really is, as we look forward for our country, are you hopeful? Do you feel hopeless? Are you encouraged about the unity that this could bring forward? Or are you afraid of the division that has been stoked in many cases? Let's start with you, Nia, and work our way this way.
So by personality, I am a delusional optimist. So I am, so I'm hopeful, and I think I'm hopeful for some of the reasons that we've talked about already. So when I think about the different communities that I am a part of, we have been thinking about again what's necessary with each type of administration, and I think that. What many of the communities that I'm a part of have seen is the work actually is not that much different with respect to the different administrations. I think the road is definitely a little more scary for sure with the Trump administration. But when I say the work, talking about things like organizing within our communities, we have to do that. Whoever is heading things at the
Whoever the president
federal
is,
level, yeah. Things like when you talk about care, when we saw mutual aid get more and more attention, for example, in the wake of government shutdowns, and then in the pandemic. So mutual aid is still going to be necessary. Being hyper-local, exercising our power and exercising democracy. And when I say exercising democracy, again, we're not just talking about elections. As you know, Ujima, that's what we're all
elections,
about,
yes,
exactly. Decision-making power to actually impact what happens in our communities. That continues no matter who is president. So that's why I'm hopeful. I think we've been practicing in the last 10 years. We will continue to practice. Our different systems and structures and processes have been strengthened, and we will see that continue.
So definitely hopeful.
Yes.
Hopeful. George?
I'm really ready to see what this country's really about. I think this is a time where we rely on our values and we stick up for them. And I think that's what we're going to be doing. It's a huge, huge commitment of what we're going to be as a country right now. Is that our young people are going to be the ones that are going to be leading us. I want to give it to them. They have some great leaders that are out here that are going to be pushing us to really think about it.
So
But
does that mean more hopeful as opposed to hopeless?
No, I'm very helpful because I know
you're very hopeful.
I work with a lot of young people and they're not playing this. They don't play these games and so forth. But also we heard all these times, the government of efficiency or whatever we heard of that before. That was called zero-based budgeting under Reagan and all these other things. So we know these things. We know these terms. They come around in circles and all that. But you know what? I think we have really smart people. I think we have people that are willing to push what this government is about as a nation and so forth. And I think we're gonna come out on top.
Hopeful because of our youth and because of the opportunity
Yes.
and all those wonderful things. Colette?
Bring it on home, Colette.
Come on home.
I am like Nia. I'm going to say, people might think I'm delulu, as the young people say, but I am very hopeful. I think that we have to build what I call the 7 traits of culturally savvy leaders. Character.
Right.
Collaboration is really important. Commitment, connection, all about getting connected. Cultural intelligence and emotional intelligence. We got to get to know each other beyond just our skin color. And we also have to have conviction and commitment, because nothing happens. We can have all the best ideas in the world. If we don't have the commitment to come together and make it happen, it's never going to happen.
Well, thank you, Colette, and thank you. So I want to wrap it up today for our Amplified, WGBH Amplified conversation here at the Boston Public Library. I want to thank our wonderful guests, Nia Evans from Ujima, of course, Colette Phillips from Get Konnected, and Chip Greenidge from Greater Minds Boston, as well as
Greatest
the
Minds, right.
Greatest Minds Boston, excuse me, as well as the Harvard School. Correct me now, the Harvard.
The Kennedy School, the Ad Center, yes.
Yes, the Kennedy School. Thank you. And I'm Ron Mitchell, here from the Bay State Banner, editor and publisher. And I want to thank you for joining us here at the Boston Public Library for GBH's Amplifier Conversations and sharing our message with the community here in Boston. So thank you so much for joining us. Thank you.